Sport Fishing on the Fly is brought to you by Togen's Fly Shop, Maui Jim Sunglasses, and Hardy Rods and Reels.
Good day everyone, and today on the bench I'm going to tie up one of my favorite salmon flies. This is a variation of the popsicle I call the Icicle. We tie it just a little bit different. I'll show you a little bit of the difference, but it's a fly that really fishes well. Here's a pink one that works well for a lot of salmon species. Of course, you can mix and match all the different colors. Here's a nice little green fly on the bench right there that would target either chum or chinook. And let's go over the materials we need to tie the fly. First of all, I'm going to be using a good strong circle hook. This is a Gamakatsu 3/0 circle hook inline. I'm going to be using some 6/0 fluorescent yellow thread. I'm going to be using some cones. This is an extra large cone head, and behind that I'm going to use some 35 thou lead-free wire. We're going to be using this is a new age chenille. You can use Krystal chenille if you like. We'll be using some rainbow crystal flash, some fluorescent green blood quill of Marabou, and also some fluorescent yellow Marabou blood quill. Okay, we'll go with the materials. Now we'll get our hook in the vise. Tie one of these fellas up. I'm going to put my lead-free on here. It helps the cone head stay in place so we don't, when we get that caught in rocks or whatever, it doesn't slide back. It's really not, I don't want to fish it that far on the bottom where it's going to be really snagging rocks. I want my sing tips to get me to the zone. I just want enough lead to get me through the heavier water where the chums or the chinook are basically going to be in pretty heavy current generally, so I'm going to need a little help to get it down into the zone. Swing some big sink tips down there, depends on the water you're fishing. Get our thread started, then we'll come in with a little bit of our, you can use bright green or green crystal flash too. Just using the rainbow. I'll cut that in half. That'll make our tail. And that's what I like to do. It's kind of like the enticers where I always like to hide my flash in underneath the pattern, most of it. When the marabou or whatever, if I'm using rabbit or fox or anything like that on the outside for these collars, I like to have the flash on the inside. When the outside is breathing, it'll just kind of, it's like a little light bulb down there. It just kind of gives them a little glint to that every once in a while, and kind of flashes on and off, if you will. Seems to be working. Been using it, and tied a lot of these jig hooks over the years. Our Jig Tactics line. Ron Wakita was one of our better customers. I know over at Kitimat, and he said this pattern right here, he said actually outfished the roe when he was using the big jigs for the Chinook and the Kitimat River, and they just fish them under, just drift them along ahead of the drift boat as they're going downstream, and they work quite well. He bought a lot of them, so did other guys, so they work quite well. Okay, we get that little bit of the body on there. Just going to actually help a little bit holding my hackle out where I want it. The main objective is get some good blood quill, nice long fibers here. Now, instead of tying in by the tip, what a lot of people do, I'm going to tie it in by the butt, and I want this getting pretty heavy down here. I want to cut that butt as thick as I can, lash it on sideways onto the shank. Get that extra stuff out of the way here so I can show you. And it is lashed on sideways, so it's coming straight perpendicular off the shank. Really, really important. And then with a lot of that butt section is very stiff. See how it's want to just stand straight out? A lot of times when people are using marabou, they kind of lash it on, and it just basically, when it gets wet in the water, it just looks like a stick. Doesn't breathe, doesn't pulsate. I'm going to tie this back, and it still wants to stick out. That's good. Coming in here with another one. Just ahead of that, make sure they're lashed sideways. That's the key right here. To get that lashed sideways. And then we got the nice thick butt on that Marabou plume, helping this hold this out. When you see this one in the water, you'll see why it works. It just swims and breathes. So I started that whole concept with the Enticer series years ago with just rabbit and little ice tub, and wow, that thing, that's got a lot of steelhead and trout and you name it. Pretty much anything that swims will eat that. It just looks alive. Of course, you can customize all your colors. You can put 2 or 3 colors in if you want. The size of the fly, you're going to need more Marabou plumes for the big flies. Okay, so that's wanting to breathe. It's wanting to stay out. That's what I'm looking for. Because it's not always under tension when we're drifting it. Let it swim naturally. That's when it really, really shines. So in the front, I'm just going to come in here with another blood quill. This will be a fluorescent yellow. Give a little accent. Tie that right behind the cone. And we'll take a couple turns just ahead to give it a little accent. Kind of looks a little nicer that way. You can do some really neat things with purples, pinks. Mix it up for different species, blues, silvers, all kinds of colors of whites. So it's really wanting to stick out. You see what's going on there now, don't you? Okay, so I can fish it just like that, or you can add a little more of the Krystal flash to the outside. I'll just cut off a little bit here. I'm just going to kind of envelope that around the shank. If you have trouble with that, probably a good thing to do until you get kind of used to doing it that way. Just take a couple, lay that in, 2 or 3 more over here. Lay that in. Takes a little longer, but it's actually get it nicer around the shank anyway when you do it this way. And I'll take a few more around the other side over the back side there. And we should get a little bit of accent around the outside. That Krystal flash really looks good in the water, as you know, anybody that uses it. Very popular material. And then I'll finish this off here at the head. Keep everything out of my way if I can. You can put a little soda straw or something over the front of that too to keep all this stuff out of your way when you're tying that off. There we go. Then I usually just, with the cone heads, I'll just take my head cement. I got a nice little dispenser here with a needle, and I can squirt a whole bunch underneath that cone. Let that dry, and she's ready to fish. Make sure you pinch the barbs on all these flies. You get one of these in your hand, it's going to be a trip to the emergency room. Get it cut out if you don't have the barb pinched. But it's a fly that really pushes a lot of water. It breathes. You can see this, why I call it the icicle. We got the little glint in the middle there, the most of it. A little bit on the outside. And this does fish very, very well. So thanks for watching again, folks. We hope you get out there and try some chums or some salmon on a fly rod. If you haven't done it before, you better get to it. It's a lot of fun, and I'm just going to trim those down a little bit for you. So thanks again. We'll catch you again real soon.